Hi, I'm recording this lecture with the primary objective of making you guys understand the format of paper 3, and I would try to guide you through the case study in such a manner that your ability to attempt all of these questions could be enhanced. As you already know, this is a case study based paper carrying 60 marks, and you have 1 hour 45 minutes to attempt all of these questions. There's no choice, obviously. So there's a rather lengthy case study that you are strongly advised to go through thoroughly. Spend about 10 minutes reading the case study, because all the questions are based on the business situation that is described in the case, and application is of the essence. Your application has to be very, very strong. You have to keep referring to the context, keep referring to the passage if you really want to ace your P3. So for this purpose, as a specimen paper, we can select Freewheeling Beans, February-March 23, a nice challenging paper to attempt. So you read the passage once. It is about a fleet of 200 vans owned by a private limited company, and they are selling organic drinks, seasonal juices, coffee, etc. It's a growing business with an autocratic style of leadership. It's a centralized management structure with no major delegation of powers to the van managers or the other employees. And they've also highlighted the fact that, because it's an autocratic style of leadership, the workers obviously are not involved in the decision-making process, and the pay structure is not that impressive. Yes, the van managers are taken care of, but as far as the other employees are concerned, they are underpaid, barely the minimum wage level, in many cases not even that. And there are some environment related issues also, because some of the vans, they are causing pollution, emission of carbon dioxide. That's another problem that they've highlighted. Though they do want to expand the business globally, but for that purpose, major structural changes will be needed. There's another point worth mentioning. The government has decided in Country Care, this is where they're operating, that they're planning to introduce some new regulations regarding the labor. The minimum wage level might have to be raised, and there'll be tougher policies regarding environment. So which obviously goes on to show that they have to fix the problem that I mentioned earlier on regarding those vans that are causing pollution. And of course, there's going to be some strictness regarding plastic packaging, so on and so forth. So this was a summary of the case study. Like I said in the beginning, you guys are advised to spend at least 10 minutes reading the passage. Understand the passage, do not panic. Once you thoroughly go through the passage, you comprehend the content, then start attempting the questions. So the first question, it is always an 8-marker analysis-based question in which they want us to analyze 2 government policies that could have an impact on the performance of FWB. And keep this in mind. If you look at the trend, last few years, ever since the syllabus or the structure was modified, you almost always come across one question on government policy or external influences. So you need to have a very firm grip over this, especially when you're planning to attempt paper 3. So as usual, in the analysis-based questions, right in the first paragraph, you will give the background, identify the problem, and define the key term. That goes without saying. There'll be 3 12 markers also in this case study, and in the 8 markers also, the analysis-based questions, and the 12 markers evaluation-based. There has to be an introductory paragraph, a brief paragraph, in which the checklist includes the 3 points, 3 boxes to be ticked. As we discussed this, I think we discussed this earlier on also when I was going through paper 2, that you must give the background first, that there is evidence in the passage that XYZ business is planning to do this, just to establish a link with the passage. Automatically your application improves as a result of this. Always identify the problem, again with reference to the passage. It could be a tough government policy in this case. It could be a demotivated workforce. Whatever the situation demands, identify the problem and define the key term also. So if legal changes, If that's the key term, of delegation of power, that's the key term. Whatever the key term is, define it first. So in this case, they want us to discuss government policies that could have an impact on the performance of FWB. So based on the information that you already have, you can straight away in the second and the third paragraph, you can select two government policies. That could be the policy regarding sustainability or environment friendliness, since they are planning to introduce all these changes. FWB, their directors, they'll be forced to revisit their policy regarding the use of plastic packaging, or that issue pertaining to the vans that are causing pollution. They have to fix that. Either they replace those vehicles or their engines, or do something about it, because there is going to be a proper policy in place shortly that will have an impact on their performance. So yes, they will have to respond to it, as a result of which the cost will rise. In the long run, this will be beneficial, obviously, but initially they will have to, adopt certain concrete measures. So one particular factor could be this one, environment. And then in the second paragraph, you can discuss the minimum wage level. That most of the workers, they're underpaid, so they will have to raise the minimum wage level. There has been an issue with reference to the increase in labor turnover also, and this has to be resolved. So one of the factors that is contributing towards the minimum wage level is the salary structures. And once the government enforces these policies and the new labor legislation is in place, then obviously they will have to raise the wage level, and there could be other steps to be taken in addition to this also, just to improve the living standards of the workers. So again, the cost would rise, etc. Though it will enhance their image also in the eyes of the stakeholders. That can be mentioned, but of course, they might not be too excited about it initially, right? So usually we have 10 to 12 minutes to attempt the 8 marker. You can extend it to 15 also, but time management is crucial here, because you have 1 or 45 minutes for all these essay type questions, the numericals as well. So in the concluding paragraph, though it does not have any separate weightage, it is always advisable to improve the quality of the answer, that you can write a couple of lines in the end. Okay, in addition to the above mentioned factors, this and this should also be taken into consideration, just to wind it up nicely, and just to, like I said, improve your presentation, right? Then the second question, that's regarding delegation. As we have already understood, they have an autocratic style of leadership, so there is no major delegation of powers. So if they start delegating powers, that could also have an impact, a positive impact on the performance of workers. You're required to discuss that. Same rule, give the background, identify the problem, define the key term. Delegation, for instance, is the passing down of authority from a higher level of hierarchy to a lower one. And then straight away, you can discuss the impact of having a democratic style of leadership, the advantages. They want us to discuss the advantages of democratic leadership, your delegation of powers. So you have to use the keywords such as decentralization. Refer to the passage that McKenna, the director, currently, she has an autocratic style of leadership. She doesn't like to delegate powers. She needs to change that. And when she does, one paragraph very easily could be composed on the basis of motivation. It will raise the motivation level of workers, and as you guys know, motivation is such an important part of our syllabus, because motivation is not one advantage. Motivation is something that leads to multiple advantages. When you have a motivated workforce, labor turnover will go down. When you have a motivated workforce, the image and credibility will be enhanced. When you have a motivated workforce, obviously the quality standards, this is the kind of business, they are interacting with the customers directly. Customer service is important. When the workers are happy and motivated, of course, the customer service will improve, and you'll be able to attract more customers and retain those customers, which could be used as a tool for overcoming competition also. So the chain of analysis, it has to be there. One point should lead to another, right? And in the second paragraph, other than motivation, you can mention the size of the business. It's an established fact that whenever there's a growing business like FWB, they are planning to go global, it is always advisable to decentralize the structure. You can't run a business in a centralized way, autocratically, if it's a growing business. You have to delegate powers. They have to appoint managers in different locations and give them a certain degree of authority to take decisions. The local knowledge that they have, that will contribute towards the quality standards. They will understand the mindset of customers in that area. They can change the menu accordingly. They understand the purchasing power of customers better. There'll be an improvement in the pricing strategy also, so on and so forth. So in 2 different paragraphs, discuss the advantages and then wrap it up the way I mentioned the previous one. All right. Right after this 8th marker, you have to remember that there are 3 calculations in paper 3. You need to go through all the formulas. Investment appraisal is very important. Payback, ARR, NPV, ratio analysis. You have to go through all the ratios. Elasticities are very common these days. Promotional spending elasticity, price, income, etc. So capacity utilization is there. So you need to have a very firm grip over your calculations, accounting and finance, the ones in the marketing section also, because 8 marks can make a huge difference. And then there are questions based on these calculations. You have to quote these figures also for evaluation purposes, for interpreting the data. You will have to refer to these answers. This is crucial. It's extremely important for us to understand these calculations, and we should be able to cope up with this nicely and easily. So in this particular case study, if you go through the paper, there's one question that is based on promotional spending elasticity of demand. It is already given. That's the 1 marker. There's a 1 marker, there's a 3 marker, and then there's a 4 marker. 8 marks for the numerical questions. So basically, you will just always give the formula. Formula does have some weightage. Promotional spending elasticity of demand, percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in promotional spending. It's all given. If 2 out of these 3 are given, it's a piece of cake to find out the 3rd one. That's the situation here. Promotional spending elasticity demand is given, and of course you have to calculate the quantity demanded. So in this particular case, it should not take you more than a minute to calculate this particular question if you know the formula, obviously. Then obviously, I just mentioned price elasticity demand also. Interestingly enough, the next part that follows this one is regarding the price elasticity of demand, in which you have to calculate the PED. The previous one, promotional spending, was already given. So again, percentage change in quantity demanded divided percentage change in price. So if you go through the passage, it is clearly mentioned that they're planning to increase the price of coffee. Both the figures are mentioned, so very easily you can calculate the percentage change in price, and we all know how to do that. Actual change divided by the original figure into 100. And then the impact on the consumption of these of coffee, that is also mentioned there. The number of cups, it drops to, I think, from 180 to 170. So both the figures are given. You will just simply calculate the percentage change in quantity divided by percentage change, quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price, and you will have your PED there. And then you can always assess whether the demand is elastic or inelastic. As you know, if it is more than 1, it is elastic, which means a change in price leads to a more than proportionate change in quantity demanded. And it could be inelastic also, which means a change in price will have no significant impact on demand. Simple calculations, but again, you need to memorize the formulas and understand the working. So after PED, the next question, which is a 12 marker, now they want you to refer to the results, to these results, and you just have to analyze the impact on the business of having some knowledge of the elasticity of demand for developing a suitable marketing mix. Marketing mix, very, very important topic. The 4 P's: product, price, place, and promotion. Very, very important for us to understand how this question is attempted. And you see the same rule in evaluation-based questions. The keywords are why, how, and however. Whereas in analysis-based question, the keywords are why and how. Right? Why, and obviously suggests that there has to be some logic to whatever you're saying. You have to give reasons, right? And the advantages need to be discussed. How is the methodology that you need to adhere to? For analysis, primarily you need to focus on why and how, but in evaluation, however should also be added to it. However, obviously, suggests that you have to discuss the other side, the risk factor. However, the policy might backfire. There has to be a counter argument, and there has to be a verdict in the end also, as you guys already know. One point that I would like to highlight, it's not that difficult, suggesting good marketing mix, product, price, place, promotion, in product, of course, the quality, the ingredients. Keep mentioning the kind of business that they are in. Keep mentioning coffee, juices, so some to show some relevance, country case, so on and so forth. Packaging should be discussed with product. My suggestion, recommendation to you is don't discuss packaging separately, discuss it as a part of product. It is important also because we need to come up with something that is environment friendly. So packaging can be discussed very conveniently to project yourself as an environment friendly company, right? It will contribute towards sustainability if your packaging material, it is organic, or you're using recycled material. So that purpose is served also through packaging. And as far as price is concerned, you will refer to the results of price elasticity demand, and then suggest that if the demand is elastic, then penetration pricing is more suitable. But if it is inelastic, then you can afford to charge a slightly higher price also, without the fear of losing a lot of customers. Similarly, in addition to product and price, place and promotion need to be focused on too. In place, discuss distribution, whether they should continue with the current distribution strategy, a zero-level distribution channel, which means interacting with the customers directly, or would they like to involve some intermediaries in order to reach out to the end user. That's a single level channel. There are no right and wrong answers as long as you discuss everything logically. And then of course the fourth P, that is promotion. So in promotion, it has to be categorized, it has to be classified between above the line promotion and below the line promotion. But make sure you're specific enough. Try to avoid generic answers. In above the line promotion, you have to specify whether it's electronic media or social media, or they should rely on flyers or billboards, and why do you suggest that? And if you're mentioning below the line promotion, then again you have to be specific. Below the line promotion obviously includes different types of incentives, whether discounts or maybe some sort of guarantee, some possible ways to satisfy the customer so that you can retain your target audience. But mention something that is relevant, because you see, buy one get one, or money back guarantee, or warranty or guarantee. I mean, these are sales promotion schemes, but these are not applicable to all the products. You have to be very careful to quote examples that are relevant to a food business, right? And of course, you have to give your verdict, your concluding remarks in the end. In the light of the above mentioned facts, it is recommended that. Okay, so this 12 marker is followed by another calculation. There's another numerical question. Very, very important, based on investment appraisal. As you know, investment appraisal includes average rate of return, the payback period, net present value. These are techniques that are used by investors to compare various investment options and then choose the most feasible one, the most viable one. So again, you need to have a very firm grasp over the formulas. For ARR, try using the latest version formula. That's obviously in ARR. I mean, originally it was net return per annum over capital cost into 100. But now it is recommended that net return per annum is fine, but instead of capital cost, it should be the average capital cost or the average investment, which can be calculated conveniently by adding the residual value to the capital cost and dividing it by 2. So all the data is given, the net cash flows are given, the capital cost is there. Basically, they want to make an investment in ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, and an amount of $650,000 that needs to be raised. So it makes good sense to conduct an investment appraisal for this purpose, and then recommend to FWB whether they should proceed with this investment or not. To calculate the ARR using this formula, show the working, and I mean, you can always expect the other investment appraisal techniques also. In other case studies, you will observe there are quite a few questions on payback period or the discounted payback period, net present value. In this case, this ARR is a 4 marker. And you must not get this wrong. Right? And then, I mean, after this, we are left with a couple of 12 markers. One is regarding ERP, enterprise resource planning. Obviously, enterprise resource planning is it is based